September the 9th, 2021. Like I said, we are the Danvers Conservation Commission. We operate under the Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Wetlands Protection Act, and Chapter 26 of the Town of Danvers General Bylaws, the Wetlands Protection Bylaw. For each item on the agenda, we'll have the applicant present his or her request, and the board will have time to ask questions and discuss the project. After this, we will accept questions from the audience. Because this is a public meeting, it is required by law that you give your name and address before you speak. Although we may disagree on the issues raised, all persons present during this meeting are expected to be civil to all of the meeting attendees. This includes members of the commission, staff, abutters, concerned citizens, property owners, and project applicants. We also want to bring it to your attention that we request that you confine your questions to the project and only as it pertains to the Wetlands Act. We cannot handle, nor do we have jurisdiction regarding such things as noise or traffic. All problems not related to the Wetlands Protection Act and the Town of Danvers Wetlands Protection Bylaw must be taken up with the other appropriate boards. Before we start the meeting, I'll just have a roll call of the members. My name is Peter Wilson. Vanessa Curran?
Present.
Vanessa is zooming in on meeting, or Teams, I should say. Chelsea King?
Here.
Ann McGill?
Here.
Michael Splain?
Yeah.
Okay, first item on our agenda is a public hearing, an amendment request for Lot 6 on Collin Drive, DEP file number 14-1332. The applicant has asked to continue until our September the 23rd meeting. So if someone would make a motion to continue, we'll go from there.
I'll make a motion that we continue the public hearing for Lot 6, Conatali Drive, Department File Number 14-1332.
Motion's been made. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Yes.
Item number 2 is a public hearing and amendment request for Lot 7, Collin Drive, DEP file number 14-1333. The applicant is Beaver Brooks Woods, LLC. Once again, the applicant has asked to continue until our September 23rd meeting. If someone would make a motion to continue the hearing, we'll proceed from there.
I'll make a motion to continue the hearing for Lot 7, Collin Drive, a DEP file number 14-1333.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Yes.
Number 3, request for determination of applicability for 24 through 42 Cherry Hill Drive, DCC file number 03-2021. The applicant is Biomed, and who is here to present for the applicant? Yes,
Yes.
please.
Hi, good evening. My name is Mike Fabiano with High Point Engineers. We're the record civil engineers for the project. With me tonight, I have Shara Lewis, project manager with JLL, and also Will Desinger, who is the global product lead for Abiomed. This project before you tonight is coined a proposed leader reaction course. This is located at 2442 Cherry Hill Drive in Danvers at the Abiomed campus. The property was recently purchased, 2442 in 2021. Abiomed currently has a headquarters across the street at the adjacent address. This building was being leased for a while, and then they decided to purchase the building. And since purchasing the building, they've been taking on some operation enhancements. This project is specifically being proposed for employee engagement. A leader reaction course is, and I'll just speak to this briefly, and then we'll go into the presentation. But since this is a unique project, I figured it makes sense to speak about it a little bit. A leader reaction course, although this is not the exact word, but for an obstacle course, it's an employee engagement where you have tasks that are led by team members, by Abiomed personnel, where you have basically elements that are being proposed where a team leader will lead a team through a problem-solving exercise. This is not a physical fitness type of operation. This is more of a problem-solving, employee engagement operation where management is trying to enhance the problem-solving skills and team bonding with Abimed, and it's being proposed out in the woods adjacent to some resource areas. So what's before you tonight is an application for a request for determination of applicability, seeking a negative determination, meaning that it's de minimis work, we believe, within the buffer zones. And I'll just jump right into the presentation. So where we're located here on the first slide, shown in yellow, is basically the Cherry Hill Drive overall complex. As you can see in the yellow, it's adjacent to the airport, and it's tucked away off to the northwest side of the Abimed complex. If you go to the next slide. This is a zoom-in version showing where the proposal is being proposed. There's a pond resource area with a drainage channel. That's the resource area that is under the jurisdiction. The yellow area is the basic area where it's being proposed on the property. Next slide. This is a zoom-in of the site plan, or actually this is one of the site plans that was proposed that shows the overall view. May be difficult to see on the screen if you have hard copies. There's a yellow line that shows where the 100-foot buffer is off the green line. So you have a green line, which is the wetland, a red line, which is the 35-foot no build, a 50-foot orange dash line that's shown just to the right of the purple line of work, and then the yellow line that's the 100-foot buffer zone to the 100-foot buffer to the wetland line. We had staked this project off in the field and then invited Ms. Pendergrass to come out to the property to view what we had done for a stakeout, and based on that site walk, which is why we made the determination that we thought an RDA was most applicable. Most of the work, and the reason why we're before you, is not necessarily for the finished product of the work, but actually the disturbance that's going to happen within the buffer zone to actually complete the work. So there's an existing path that moves you from the parking lot. I'll let you zoom down to the. Well, I'll just start here. The next couple slides are zoomed in. So this shows the overall scope of the project. Shown in the upper left-hand corner is the LRC itself, or the leader reaction course, that shows all 7 tasks and elements that are proposed in the field. On the lower side, coming off the parking lot, you see a path network with some hatching. That's shown where we have construction stability happening with some temporary timber mat that's being placed down to minimize the amount of disturbance that's happening in the field, as well as the platform that's part of the application. If you go to the next slide. So this is a zoom-in image of the LRC itself. As you can tell, most of the work that is proposed is outside of the 100-foot buffer zone, but there is a portion of the LRC setup itself that is proposed inside the 100-foot buffer to the right of the yellow line. That's task number 7. That task is located outside the 50-foot buffer, but inside the 100-foot buffer. That task is approximately, I think, 12 by 12 in size. Is proposed to be a platform of sorts where it's enclosed with wood planking that has like a 6-inch reveal. Inside the wood planking or the lag board is going to be either a rubberized, well-draining material that's used to absorb if someone should fall or needs to be on the ground. But we are actually looking at moving that to a natural material instead of the rubberized material, and seeing if the vendor will allow us to go to a bark mulch to be proposed inside. But it's all free draining. All rainwater just drains right through the material and drains out the side through weep holes. And then inside that rectangle, as all the other rectangles, there are tasks, which are basically, obstacles, for lack of a better term, but tasks that are being, members of the ABLEMED staff are being led by a project manager. There'll be 8 to 10 people within a team. This will be used throughout the year, except during winter conditions. It might be used 2 to 3 times per year. They're only out in the field probably 2 to 3 hours at a time. But the entire arrangement is connected by a bark mulch path. So this is meant to be in a natural environment. The only disturbance that's happening is within these rectangle areas, and the ability to make a 2.5 foot wide bark mulch path, through the woods, with the intent of limiting, if not eliminating, any major tree cutting, and just maneuvering a path through the woods, with the least amount of impact as possible. Next slide. The most disturbance that's happening, in my opinion, is the actual construction, the constructability of, or I guess the means and methods to construct the actual LRC in the background. So what's going to happen is we're going to have a staging area over here on the pavement that's hatched off to the right. We're proposing a timber mat, which I believe you're familiar with that erosion control method, across a grass area, into the woods, over an existing path, over the earthen berm that connects the pond area to a drainage swale, such that the path, we're going to have, working with the contractor, some small equipment such as a bobcat, or nothing larger than a bobcat, nothing larger than a gas-powered buggy to move materials. But the ground is going to be supported in this section that's hatched off with a timber mat, and we thought that was the best way to preserve the grass area that's in between the tree line and the parking lot, but also as you get into the woods where it's just earthen material, if you have travel that's happening back and forth, it's better to have small equipment that can move lots of things at one time compared to only doing things by hand back and forth, and that area is the most sensitive. So besides the timber mat, we have erosion control measures, in this case down here, such as silt sock, as well as silt fence in this area. But then when it gets up onto the more upland section of the buffer zone, we transition out of both to only silt sock along the perimeter of the limit of work. Next slide. So along the way, if the members who joined us at the site walk yesterday, there was a platform, an existing platform that was adjacent to the head wall. The intent, as a piece of this RDA submission, our intent is to remove that platform from the water, put it onto the path, replace 1 or 2 of the vertical posts that are a little bit of disrepair, but otherwise it's in very good shape, and reset that platform just directly into the water, into the silt, no footings, no foundations, nothing besides that platform as you see it, just set directly into the silt underneath the water, and then attach that with some L brackets and lag it directly to the head wall. The point of the platform is specifically for employees to enjoy the pond, to fish, to possibly get closer to the water, because there's no area that is adjacent to the water that allows you to walk right up to the water. The platform has been out there for a number of years. It's kind of hard to tell whether or not it was ever permitted in the first place, to be honest with you, because it was there before ABLEMED had purchased the property. But they want to make use of the environmental resource area as much as possible and make it an amenity for their employees, and we thought it would be fitting to make use of that existing platform, but just get it reorientated so that it was safer, adjacent to the path, adjacent to the head wall. And it's only 4 by 6. It's a small platform. It's not substantial in any regard, but that's the intent of the platform. Next slide. I do have other pictures and other details that was submitted in the overall application, but that more or less is the intent of the project. It's a limited amount of work that's happening within the buffer zones, and I believe that that the project is in keeping with what an RDA is meant to be. But be happy to take any questions.
Okay, thanks. Thank you for having us out for a site visit last night. You always see so much when you see it in the flesh.
Thank you for attending.
I'm just gonna, poll the members of the board and see if they have any questions or comments. So I'll start with Chelsea.
Sure. Do you know how long this entire project might take?
Let's speak to Shara Lewis on that for timing. Shara, would you like to come up to the? No, two. Sorry.
Yeah, so we're still working out the details on how long it will take, but I would imagine it's about 6 to 8 weeks. And most of that is actually building, less about the path, but more about building those structures or obstacles that are mostly outside of the buffer zone, except for that one station.
I would add to that the intent of AbbyMed is to build as quickly as possible in the shortest duration of period so that it can become available to the staff. Their intentions when we started this was they wanted to be open and have it running a month ago. And because of just, we're here to permit, not only do we need a permit, a negative determination from the Conservation Commission, we're also seeking a variance from the zoning board because a few of the elements are within the side yard setback. So we have a variance application in front of the zoning board. The planning board is not, we've met with the planning board and there's no permitting that's required under the planning board.
My other question is regarding that platform. So you said you're not adding any piles or foundation whatsoever?
Correct.
Okay. I think that's all the questions I have for now.
Okay, there would be new legs for that platform.
Yeah,
What is
if they'd even required, it's kind of hard to tell as it sits in the water that's tilted right now. You can kind of tell from the picture, if you want to go back to the picture, just below the X brace or the brace that comes down, you can kind of tell it's only probably 6 inches below that lower board. That's the bottom. So it's basically no more than 18 inches or so that's sitting in the water.
What is the source of water for that pond? Is it just drainage?
It comes, I believe, it is a drainage or a watershed from the airport. There's another wetland system that was, you might remember from the Beverly Airport submission for their fence project. There's a large wetland system that's it kind of goes in spots, but along the perimeter that's adjacent to our property. And this water comes off the runway area. And then there's a large wetland resource that is probably in about 3 or 4 different pods that runs kind of parallel to the property. And it runs along adjacent to our property line and eventually makes its way over into this pond. Then it goes through that culvert that's only 8 feet wide or 10 feet wide or long. And then there's a drainage channel that brings it all the way back to Cherry Hill. Then from there, I haven't followed it to chase it where it eventually discharges to. But it was apparent that it was definitely drainage that was the pond itself and the drainage channel were put in back in the 80s, as a stormwater
Part of the construction
improvement.
of the park.
Yeah.
Okay, all set, Chelsea?
Yeah.
Mike, have any questions?
Yeah,
comments?
thank you. With regards to the platform, Georgia, that's work within our area.
Yeah,
So is that part of their application or their request? Is it included?
yes, so
Have they set it out in the request?
yes, you have identified specifically to replace and repair in kind that platform.
Okay.
It's part of the RDA proposal, Mike. It's not really
And
as detailed as.
what are you using for material to repair that?
Just to replace the leg if needed. So there's no other, if it even needs to be repaired. It's kind of hard to tell in the water whether or not it does, but we would take it out, make sure that the 4 vertical posts that are the legs on all 4 corners are sturdy and in place. And if one of those, I can't tell if they're 4x4s, needs to be replaced. So
Is the carpenter going to want to use pressure-treated lumber, and then is that a concern?
It's a concern for me.
The arsenic?
Yeah.
Well, it's used elsewhere. I mean, the whole swamp walk is
What's
pressure
that?
treated wood.
Will
The
be
whole
a swamp
walk.
wood, yeah.
It can be. You make
Yeah.
that a consideration. Actually, all 4 could be replaced.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd be in favor of that.
Okay.
And is that being attached physically to, so it doesn't, get thrown up with frost heaves or ice
Yes.
or?
Yes,
what
the
have you.
intent would be to talk to the contractor that there would be an L bracket that would be, lagged into the top of the platform and then lagged into the side wall of the head wall, so it's attached.
Stationary,
Simply
yeah.
stationary that way.
All right, and nothing larger than a Bobcat coming in there?
Nothing larger than a Bobcat.
Okay, I'm satisfied, thank you.
Thank you.
Good. All set then, Mike?
Yes.
Thanks. Ann, any questions, comments?
Just one on the maintenance of the structures themselves. Obviously, they'll be in use during the year. What happens when they're not in use? What, in terms of weather and types of wind
Yep, no, good
fractures
question.
and all
So
of
I
that?
would-
Yeah?
I would say that, so it's permanent from the standpoint that these, the actual tasks are connected to footings, and they remain there. So even though it's not being used during the wintertime, it will just remain as is. But from a maintenance standpoint, so the storage shed that's a part of the proposal, that's a small storage shed, there's things like, 12-foot long planks, a barrel, there's props that are used during the actual exercise that the employees need to use. Those get stored within the shed, so they get taken in and out, so they're not out in the open. They're only taken out when the operation is in use. I would believe that the actual bark mulch path itself and the material that gets used on the inside of the rectangles that gets kicked around needs to make sure that stays, within a certain depth. And that, the intent always is to have these elements just kind of be out in the woods and have natural forest conditions everywhere, except for where the path meanders through the woods, that connects each path. So I would imagine that the maintenance from year to year is going to be the bark mulch path, which is proposed at 2.5 feet wide, to make sure that stays intact. And that would probably get refreshed at the beginning of each season. And the actual material that gets used on the inside of the tasks themselves would get replaced to make sure that was in. But everything else, if anything comes in, it goes out or it stays within the task element itself. So the intent is natural environment around the perimeter of all of it.
Okay, in terms of, you told us that you weren't taking down trees. There's a couple that you were dead trees. Okay, as the seasons progress, there may be more trees falling down, things like that. Again, Ambiomed is going to be responsible for that kind of maintenance or dealing with fallen trees or whatever?
Yes, they would. Yeah, this is 100% within their property, and the intent is to keep the entire operation obviously safe, for all employees that are utilizing the property. There's, if there was ever a large tree that fell over in the woods that created damage, it would get repaired.
Yeah.
The small, you notice, even like this limb that's shown across the head wall, there was one that everyone saw in the meeting in the field. There's no reason to remove anything like that. It just gets moved to the side and just isn't on the path. So all that can stay. So I would say that the maintenance that would happen if, some of the elements have some vertical, operation to them. If there happens to be a branch that grows out over time that comes and starts influencing the rectangle, that just gets trimmed back a little bit to make sure that zone is kept clear. But everything else just stays the way it is.
Thank you.
Welcome.
All set, Ann?
Yep.
Vanessa, any questions, comments?
I just wanted to ask about the platform that's shown in the picture right now, the one that's in the water. What height is that planned to be set at?
Off the water, it's approximately, I think, 18 inches to 24 inches off the water. It's flush with the head wall. So the head wall is, the water fluctuates a little bit up and down, within the pond, but I would say it's approximately 2 feet. The top of the platform to the water surface is about 2 feet to 18 inches.
Oh, but you're going to set it flush with the head wall. So as it's shown, it's much higher than the head wall.
Well, it's a little bit of an optical illusion because it has slid away from the head wall where it's not adjacent to the head wall and it's tilted. That elevation it's going to be set down a little bit further so that those boards that you see in the bottom of the picture are going to be more in line with the water. So from that board up is about 2 feet.
Okay.
Yeah, well, the intent is the top of the platform is flush with the, no higher than the head wall.
Okay, and you're not planning on doing any piles, any digging into the sediment, anything like that? You're just fixing it and then attaching it to the wall, and you're just letting it sit on the mud?
That is 100% correct.
Okay. All right, I don't have any additional questions at this time.
I have a just
Go ahead,
a
Mike.
follow-up, if it's all right. I meant to ask, because during the walk, we talked about the footings, and I think, I forget your name, miss, but I think you said that you were talking about a possible alternative. Could you just speak to that?
Yeah, so currently, the way they had been designed, the same tasks were done at an installation in California, and they were designed with these 24-foot diameter footings. 24-inch, yeah, excuse me.
Let's say 2 feet.
24-inch, they're huge. So 24-inch diameter across. So we are in conversations with the designer about, because I think that may be a little bit heftier than we need. So we're
Seems-
looking at whether alternative materials could be used or a smaller diameter. We'll do them, we want them to be safe and sturdy and be there all the time, but we also don't, we'll do the minimum that's needed to accomplish that. I'll also say that there are a number of footings within each
Yeah,
one.
well, wouldn't
so-
it be just like taking a sauna tube and filling it up and it sits on, I mean, I look at decks and things, and they don't have 2-foot footings.
No, they're probably half that.
Yeah, half or less, yeah.
A deck is like a foot to 18 inches.
Yeah.
I would say, a deck is usually, that's a reason. So there's 2 reasons. There's a couple reasons. That comes as a standard detail by the manufacturer or the vendor who, does the assembly. So, ultimately, there's some liability about the structure and frost heave and just the longevity and who has the liability for whatever. But, we're trying to reduce the size of the footing because it reduces the amount of material that needs to be brought into the field, reduce the amount of foot traffic that goes through the woods, reduce the amount of time it takes to build everything, and overall reduces the cost too as the last piece. But if they can be reduced to 12 inches or possibly another material, but it's a sonotube. It's a sonotube. It's being dug by hand, or the Bobcat has an auger, just an auger in that one spot. That's laid out, that's all that's happening.
All right, well, that was my question, so thank you for answering. Yeah.
You're welcome.
Okay, let me just pursue that. So obviously, we'd prefer to see you excavating a smaller hole. And again, my gut feel is that you can. And then subsequent to that, you have to tell us what you're going to do with the displaced material. I think yesterday you had mentioned carting it out, and I wouldn't think that would be the best thing to do. I would rather see you use that as some of your leveling material.
Right, so it's, to the extent that it can be used as leveling material, it will. If it can't be used as leveling material, it's going to remove, the earth that gets removed will get removed off-site, spoils will not be left in the woods, in the field. It will be removed, from the premises and carted, to an appropriate site.
But we'd prefer that you used it in the project instead of.
Yes.
It's just one fewer trip across the bridge right here.
Yeah, it's if you don't use it, you have to bring something in to replace it. So we want to use as much as we
Right.
can to make sure. The whole point is to get in and out as fast as possible and to use as much of the material as we can.
Okay, and then we had talked about it and you mentioned it, I think we'd prefer that you use bark mulch instead of the rubber material. Only because,
Has that been discussed with the?
It has been discussed, we haven't finalized yet with them on that, but we brought up that maybe, I asked whether a natural material such as mulch could be used. And they said the likelihood is yes, but it would just have to be a deeper layer of mulch to provide the same cushioning that a smaller layer of the pelletized rubber would accomplish. But if that's preferred by the commission, then we'll certainly
Yeah, I think.
pursue that.
We'd probably make that a condition. That's my preference, at least. There was the bark mulch, now there was a third thing that slid my mind now. Okay, just my general comment that I'll make, and hopefully the other members agree with me. You know, I think that this is a rather low impact ongoing on this area, and it seems like you're ready to take the proper precautions to protect the wetlands. So I'm in favor of this. So if
Do we have to ask comments?
we will. Any other board members have any other questions or comments?
I actually had
Go
one
ahead,
more
Chelsea.
question about, just because I'm looking at the picture. Are you gonna do anything with any of the foliage or plant around this platform, like trim it away or clear it?
Probably get rid of the poison ivy that's.
Yeah, the poison ivy thing.
It'll just grow back.
that are-
Remember, it's
that are
part
there.
of the
I would say
ecosystem.
that, you know, within the cone of influence, the vertical cone of influence for the platform, if there's any limbs that are overhanging that area, that would be removed. But, you know, the intent is to come off the path, directly go to the head wall, which is only 3 or 4 feet away between the path where the picture is taken and the top of the head wall. And then, you know, if the branches you see on the ground, those be moved off to the sides, you know, put back onto the forest floor, but make that as just a safe passage, the 3 or 4 feet it takes to get to the platform. But any of the overhangs, if there's a limb or two that are directly overhanging that, they would just be cut back, you know, only in the influence of the platform, which is it seems like there's very minimal overhang in that area.
Alright. That's all I had.
Okay, does anyone from the public have anything? Go ahead, Jeff. Jeff, Matt.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Matthew Duggan, Selectman. Just to the point about the rubber, pelletized rubber, I would urge you to have that as a condition to not allow that material into which is basically a conservation area. It does abut the Proctor Farm, the town-owned conservation space. But we don't need rubber in that area. That's forever, right? And it gets trampled down, it'll be in the soil. Best to just have to require them to bring mulch in every year or whatever, just to maintain that walkway. That's all I have, thank you.
Good, Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other comments? Is there anything from online, Georgia? Are we still?
No.
Okay, if someone can make a motion to, I see us issuing a negative determination.
I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion that we make a finding of non-applicability with regards to our bylaw, with the understanding that even though we're making a finding of non-applicability, we still can apply conditions to that finding. So even though we're saying you don't, our bylaw doesn't apply, we're allowed to put conditions on that. And in connection with the motion, I would suggest conditions nothing larger than a bobcat coming into the area. Minimize the use of the footings to 12 inches. Use bark mulch, not rubber, as our selectman has suggested and is really active in conservation matters in this town. That we use swamp-compatible wood for any work you do on that platform, not chemically treated wood. And that we use mulch, I think I said that already.
Yeah.
I think
But
that's all.
maybe any
Instead of
earth
the rubber,
disturbed
And-
gets used as fill
and
material.
Try to use all the earth that's removed to be used in connection with your project, so to minimizes hauling material or debris out of there. That's the motion.
Mr. Chairman, I don't know that we can guarantee that they'll go to 12-inch diameter. At this point, we don't know whether or not
You
that's,
could let staff know.
but as a condition to force it to be 12 inches right now. I don't know.
Say as
I think it's for
best
your
as you can.
benefit to go to the smaller,
If
just so
it-
you don't have to deal with the spoils.
I know, but
if-
from
if
the
you have
equipment
to, then,
standpoint, I don't know that we can actually do that yet, because it hasn't been confirmed that 12 inches will suffice structurally for those, that's all I'm saying. I can't guarantee that. So that as a condition, if it's a condition of approval, and then we can't, then that forces us to come back to the commission to seek a modification.
The condition were worded as minimize or reduce.
Minimize the use of footings to the extent possible.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Right, you have
All right? I'll amend
less
the
amount of
motion. to
concrete you
that.
have to bring in there than put in the ground, the better.
Yes.
The motion's been made, is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And the conditions were recorded, right, Georgia?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, good luck.
Thank you.
Next up is item number 469 North Street, notice of intent. There is no DEP file number, so we will not make a vote on this tonight, but if the applicant is here and would like to present what their plans are, we'd be happy to listen.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, Chris Sparagus from the Engineering and Survey Office of Williams and Sparagus in Middleton, right next door. We have two applications in front of you tonight, one that involves one of the building lots on the project, and then another. Okay, thank you. And then another that's the project in a larger form. It probably makes sense to do the subdivision first, with your permission.
And that's next on the agenda? Yes, and you're doing both?
Yes, please.
Yes, sure, that's fine.
Okay, great. Just wait for that plan to come up
Yes,
real
the
quick.
plans will come up. There's a little bit of delay. And I would say if you can't see in the audience, you're welcome to move forward or let us know. If you can't see, we can make it bigger.
So it's been a little while since I presented in front of the Concom here in Danvers, but this project is very similar in nature to another project that we permitted back in 2012 at Saratoga Lane, a 10-lot subdivision. I think Mr. Splain was on the commission at that time for that project.
Yeah.
So it goes back a little ways. Okay, thank you.
You were a teenager then, Mike?
So again, Chris Sparagus from Williams and Sparagus, and I'm here representing the owner of the property, Mr. John Hernandez. And Mr. Hernandez actually has lived around the corner from this particular project at 69 North Street since 2007. And he purchased this property back in February from the McGilvery family. It's a familiar property to folks in town. There's a large estate home on the property and a couple of outbuildings. And what Mr. Hernandez did, and we helped him prepare an A&R plan for the project at the very beginning. Also for the record, Nancy McCann is our legal counsel for the project. And what we've done is we've recently submitted a definitive subdivision plan with the planning board. And that subdivision plan is going to create, our proposal is to create frontage for 6 new homes, and a portion of the project lies within the buffer zone to a wetland, which brings us here tonight for our notice of intent. And we'll be looking at a couple of different wetlands on the property. There's one out back. And so if you look at the plan, north is up and south is down. And so the wetland that affects the subdivision near the cul-de-sac is a relatively small wetland on the north side of the property. And then later, when we're talking about our proposed A&R lot number 4, that has a little bit of activity for the driveway where it comes out to North Street, that's the south wetland down below. So we appeared in front of the planning board back in April and subdivided the property into 5 lots. There were 4 A&R lots created, technically 5, across the frontage of 69 North Street. The existing home was placed on Lot 2. And I'll walk around a little bit here. This is Lot 2 with the existing home preserved, and then 3 additional A&R lots here, and then a larger lot that is the subject of our definitive subdivision plan. The property is located on a map right in the center of Danvers. So if you were to kind of throw a dart, it's right in the middle of the town. We're south of the Putnamville Reservoir and downstream. And then just to the south of us is Putnam Hill, which is the location of a U.S. military base. The entrance to the base is literally across the street from our entrance, proposed entrance right over here. And on North Street, off to the east, is Locust Street, about 770 feet away. And just to the west of us is Calumet Road, which is another residential subdivision roadway. In total, the property that we're subdividing is approximately 6.9 acres. That's the subject of the subdivision plan. And so there are 6 proposed lots that are going to create 6 new homes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and the existing home here at number 69. That existing home was recently sold in June, and so there's a new family living in that home today. Topographically, the property slopes away from North Street, so North Street sits a little bit higher than the property. And so we have a topographic high in the southwest corner of the property at about elevation 124. So it's highest here. And then in general, the property slopes from the west to the east in this direction. And the lowest elevation on the property is down near the wetland at elevation 90. In terms of the wetland resources, there are 16 flags that make up the A series on the north side. And they were flagged by Bill Manuel back in 2020. And our Greg Hockmuth flagged the B series wetland, which is on the south side, also about 15 flags across the street on North Street. Greg also took a peek at Bill's flags and didn't have a problem with those flags either. And so why are there wetlands at these locations? North Street also slopes in general from high to low in this direction. And there's street drainage all along North Street. And in this vicinity, it collects and discharges into a 24-inch pipe located about here. And that pipe comes through the property and discharges to the wetland here. And this is a little hole in the ground. There's another 24-inch pipe that leaves the wetland and continues on beyond our property. All of this drainage was installed when the military base was first created back many years ago. So our proposal is to construct a residential subdivision roadway in accordance with the Planning Board's rules and regulations. The length of the road is approximately 800 feet, and the road will have utilities, including stormwater management, water and sewer, and we'll also have a sidewalk that runs the entire length of the roadway. Each of the lots will support a single-family home, and this is the R3 residential district. In terms of stormwater management, we've designed a stormwater management system that complies with DEP stormwater management regulations and the DPW's stormwater management rules and regs locally. And in terms of treatment, I'll touch upon just a few of the things. There are, because the road and the property slopes from uphill to downhill, in the existing condition, it's going to do that in the proposed condition. And so water in the street will flow down. It'll get captured in a series of 5 deep sump hooded catch basins. So there are a pair of catch basins here, here, and then at the low point, a double catch basin grate, single basin. These will enter into a pre-treatment device, which is a proprietary device to provide some additional treatment before discharging to an underground stormwater management area that's this rectangular shape here. There are approximately, there are quite a few chambers. There are 167 storm tech chambers. They sit approximately 45 inches tall, and they're 90 inches long, and they're stacked in this rectangular configuration here. And in addition to the roadway runoff, because we also created these A&R lots, and really this is one project from a DEP standpoint for our stormwater management. And so we've incorporated and accounted for all of the impervious surfaces that are being created on each one of these lots as part of the overall stormwater management design. There's another catch basin on this side that collects overland flow and then enters the underground infiltration chamber. And what the underground chamber does is that it accomplishes a couple of different goals. Some water is infiltrated back in the ground to allow us to comply with DEP's infiltration requirements. And then it also holds back the water and slows down how fast it leaves the stormwater management area, and then eventually is discharged to a point here upstream of the wetland before it continues on its path. Other utilities are pretty straightforward. We have proposed to tie into the town sewer. We're proposing a sewer manhole about 75 feet into the project, where we'll be able to tie in at least one home by gravity. And the remaining houses will discharge via individual sewer pump stations on each of the lots to a common force main. And this is something similar to what exists down at Saratoga Lane, that project that I spoke about earlier. There's an existing 8-inch water line out on North Street, and we're proposing to tie into that. Our proposed water line is proposed also as an 8-inch line. It'll come down the entire length, and we have a couple of fire hydrants, one at the end and one about halfway up. So there'll be 2 new fire hydrants that would support the new roadway. The last item I wanted to talk about is the proximity to the wetland. This is how the commission likes to see the plan presented, color-coded, if you will, the wetland in green. This first buffer zone is the 35-foot no disturb zone, which is relatively new, and then the 50-foot buffer zone and the 100-foot buffer zone. And then we also show our proposed erosion control line in this purple color here. So we tried very hard to comply with the Commission's new local regulations, and we're keeping all of our activity more than 35 feet from the wetland. We have a portion of the cul-de-sac that falls within the buffer zone here, along with a portion of the stormwater management area and the driveway that serves proposed Lot 5. We'll be back later on a future date. Once a homeowner comes forward and decides what they'd like to build here, we'll come back for a separate notice of intent for that property later. But what we're able to do here is we curved the road and placed the cul-de-sac and shaped the road in such a way just to keep it far enough away so that we could grade out this slope here and stay out of the 35-foot no disturb zone. And we're able to do that with a short riprap slope across a portion here and then along the driveway here. That riprap would be sloped at a slope of 1.5 to 1. Silt fence, of course, the erosion control line that we proposed, which I believe is a mulch sock that's detailed on one of our plans, is right along the 35-foot no disturb zone here, and then it fans out, as you can see, and wraps around the portions of the project that are downhill from our proposed activity. No need to put silt fence on the portions of the property that are uphill because all of the stormwater is kind of flowing, as I said, in this direction. So that concludes my formal presentation, Mr. Chairman, but I'm here to answer questions. Thank you.
Okay, I'll just have one quick one to begin with. Up in Lot 2, up in the corner, what is the 4 or 5 lines in the, it's like a snake?
Are you referring to
Yes.
these lines?
Yes.
So those are proposed topographic lines. And so we show the lay of the land and the existing condition in a lighter color. And then we propose to change the lay of the land, and these lines represent the way the lay of the land is we're proposing to change it on the plan. What these grades here, and without looking at my detail plan, I believe it provides the ability for this house to have a walkout out of the basement. but they're proposed topographic
But
lines.
it's not a wall per se, it's still gonna be.
Retaining wall.
It's all, it's just earth. That's right.
Okay, I'll save my questions till the end. Chelsea, do you have questions or comments?
Can you go into more detail about that riprap slope that you proposed in the 50 to 35 foot area, the grayed out area?
Sure. I know on one of our detail sheets, Georgia, we have a detail showing the riprap. Do we have those plans? So our preference, well, we have different choices for materials that we use on the surface depending on how steep a slope is. So we know that we could plant grass on a slope that's sort of a 3-to-1 slope, and we can also do it on a 2-to-1 slope. Once we approach that 45-degree angle, we don't like to go there at all. We kind of take it back a little bit. Once you get this steep, the only way to stabilize the slope properly is to use a riprap. And so, larger rocks, anywhere from 8 to 12 to 15 inches round, they would be placed along that slope to stabilize the slope.
Okay.
This is our plan and profile sheet, but later on in one of our detail sheets, we do have a detail that shows how the riprap slope is to be constructed. Let's see, next sheet. Pretty sure we have one. See if we can go back, Georgia. Sorry, we may not have one. I know that I was just looking at it on one of my plan sets earlier today. I thought it was this one. Okay, one more. So it looks like I don't have it on here, so
We can revisit, because we're
Yep.
gonna have to come back to this.
Sure, we'll definitely add that detail to the plan.
That was all I had, though.
Chelsea, all set then?
Yeah.
Michael, any questions?
Thanks. Yeah, if we could put the original plan back up, please. There it is. The underwater collection system, what did you say, 45, the dimension on that?
Sure, they sit 45 inches tall
Yeah,
and 90 inches long.
and that's underground, so how, does that require maintenance or servicing?
So there is a proposed maintenance plan associated with the chambers, and we provide inspection ports every so many feet so that you can...
Whose lot is that going to be? That's going to be on someone's lot?
Yes, it is. Just like a detention basin or a stormwater management area, it ends up on someone's lot, and we try not to burden, many lots. And so the easement area for the drainage system is a rectangle that is just on the outside of the chambers.
Yeah.
And it's going to lie on this A&R lot that has frontage on North Street and this A&R lot that has frontage on North Street.
And assuming, it requires, say, annual maintenance, is there going to be some association agreement, or who's going to be responsible to do that?
So my understanding, after talking about this in detail with Attorney McCann, is that it's been the practice of the town through the DPW that the town will take on the maintenance responsibility for the stormwater management
The
system.
town will go on the private property and do it?
That's correct. So what we do is we provide, we grant easements to the town that allows them to come out and take a look. Now, to be honest with you, very little work should ever have to be done on this underground stormwater management area, as long as the town does a good job of cleaning out the catch basins, which I know they do regularly.
Mm-hmm.
Each of the catch basins has a 4-foot sump. Most cities and towns will actually do it twice a year, some once a year. And then we have a pre-treatment device located right here as well, that if those are cleaned regularly, that should prevent sediment from entering the infiltration gallery.
All right, just, Judge, so will the town accept this to take this on, and then it'll be in the deed, that there'll be easements in the deed to allow for that?
So the maintenance of the stormwater system, once it's built and operating, is under the responsibility of the developer until it is accepted by the town. And so once it's accepted by the town at town meeting, and it becomes just like any other roadway in town, then our DPW would maintain it.
And that would be
As-
Steve King's call?
Yeah, so under our MS4 permit, it's really just the stormwater permit for the whole town. We have maintenance of when our catch basins are cleaned out, when the streets are swept. All that's on a certain schedule based on the stormwater requirements from the state. So they will be cleaned out once the roadway is accepted by town. And the easements as well, those are worked through with the town, and as Chris had just noted, the developer, when that acceptance is made.
Okay, thank you. Another question is, which of those lots are going to be they're going to have to pump their discharge? Which ones are those?
Sure, there are five lots altogether. So once we pass this point in the road, anyone below this road, they're just too low.
They're below the road, grade of the road?
Below the sewer out in the street.
Oh, they're
here.
below sewer, and there's no
Right.
way to get,
That's right, to get there by gravity. Our
By
preference,
gravity.
obviously, would be to get there by gravity. So there are the 5 homes at the end of the project will require.
all 5?
Yes.
Yeah, and they'll, so when they're out of power, they're out of, they're out of luck.
Well, it's just like a resident that has a septic system with a, with a pump.
No, I know.
So they have to be aware and carefully plan for, for those events. Some people choose to spend the money and get, temporary or emergency generators, but you don't have to.
Yeah, and finally, what's the nature of the wetland there? Is it involve a stream or a brook, or?
So the wetland in the back,
Yes.
so, it borders on an intermittent stream is the best description, because water flows through this 24-inch pipe and enters this wetland area. And so water flows from the pipe here that's higher than the pipe here. And so there is an intermittent stream, and that wetland borders on it.
So is that triggering 100 foot?
That's correct. That's definitely a BBW.
Have you showed that 100 foot on there?
Yeah, that's the yellow line.
Okay, good.
Yep.
And across the street, is that also triggering 100 foot?
It does. That's also bordering on the street drainage. There's a pipe somewhere. We weren't quite able to find it, but some way it ends up in the street drainage, and it's bordering.
Thank you. That's all my questions. Good, you did a good job presenting,
Thank you.
even if you were rusty.
Excuse me, sir. We'll do the board first, and then we'll open it for the... Excuse me, sir.
Yeah, we're gonna go through the boards first,
Excuse me,
and then
sir.
to you.
7 and 9. We get flooded there. The water just lays there. for
Excuse me,
days.
sir, you are out of order. We are going to the board members asking their questions, and then I will open it to the public for any comments. So just be patient. You'll
Get your
the se-
shot.
Okay, Mike, are you all set?
Yes, thank you.
Ann, any questions?
No, I think I've got them all covered as far as I could.
All right, Vanessa?
But you don't have to leave, you're gonna get a chance.
Vanessa, do you have any questions?
Yes, so at the cul-de-sac, it does look like there's a very tiny portion of the curve of the cul-de-sac that is crossing over the 50-foot buffer, and also the riprap is going to be falling between the 50 and the 35. So I was wondering if there was any way to change the curve of the road, or slightly shorten the road, or minimize the circumference of the cul-de-sac to pull those incursions into the 50 and 35 out a little further.
So I understand what you're describing, and we spent quite a bit of time positioning the road in such a way to honor the new bylaw requirements, and we believe that we've done that. The shape of the cul-de-sac and the size of the cul-de-sac, the shape of the road is per the planning board rules and regulations. We're also asking for very, very few subdivision waivers. We tried very hard to create a plan that didn't require any waivers. But the way we've designed the plan, showing the lots that we've shown, that's as, we do have to get that close. But we are honoring the bylaw.
So will you be requesting any waivers?
From your bylaw?
Yes.
No, not at all. I was referring to the planning board rules and regulations.
Well, if you're in the 50, you'll have to request.
Chris, so I had noted to the board there appears to be a small portion of the sidewalk and the riprap that fall within the 50-foot no build. That's not that that's prohibited. A waiver request is required no matter what blanket for work in that area. You would be subject to 20% alteration of that overall 50-foot, and it appears that that small portion of sidewalk, I think, would be well under that 20%. But for the next meeting, I had noted in the memo, it would be good to have that calculation.
Okay, so the sidewalk qualifies as a build?
So we're in the 50-foot no build, it's reading the bylaw, it's gonna say alteration, and I could be
Just gonna
incorrect
walk
too,
over
I'm
here
gonna
real
have to
quick.
clarify.
Okay. It's hard to see that small detail. I just wanted to grab the plan.
It really, I couldn't figure out, measure the square footage, but it is a very, very small, David, if you're able to, yeah. And then maybe even one more time. So in between,
So I see the area that you're talking about. So we anticipated that ahead of time.
yep,
So there is no sidewalk on that side.
okay,
So what we did, because the sidewalk was going to end up there, we cut it short. And I'll show you what we did real quick, because I'm pretty sure we looked at that. So the sidewalk comes down on one side here. It's right next to the sideline here. So the sidewalk comes down like this to a wheelchair ramp. We decided instead of running it around the cul-de-sac, because it was going to go into the 50, we came across the street instead with another wheelchair ramp and continued the sidewalk to this driveway. And so there's nothing on this side except a guardrail.
So it stops there?
It stops right here, outside the
No,
100
it
foot.
stops, it goes around the cul-de-sac.
Yep, to this
driveway,
point
the
right
sidewalk.
here.
So it doesn't
Yeah.
actually go into the
Oh, well,
50.
I know, it's
Okay.
kind of hard to see that detail. That's why I was kind of thrown off a little bit. I said, I thought we
No, that's,
addressed that.
Vanessa doesn't miss much.
glad you explained that.
Vanessa, more questions?
Yes, so actually, now that I'm looking at it really zoomed in like this, thank you, David. It actually looks like, so there's kind of like the darker line that outlines the circle. And then it looks like the part, sorry, I wish I could point at this.
Sure, so
where it says-
the dark line represents, we call it, the easiest way to describe it is the property line of the road. And then the sidewalk is a 5-foot offset from that dark line. So the next line on the inside is the limit of the sidewalk.
Okay, so then in the area where it says riprap, the text riprap appears,
Yes,
it's, okay, great. So see, there's kind of like the curve of the road within the 50 there, but that also looks like it's riprap. So how, and when you look to kind of, you know, around each curve there, it looks like there's trees planted there, right? Are those trees the round objects with the dots in the middle?
that's right. Those are
Yeah.
proposed street trees.
So are you just starting the, like, kind of cutting off the edge of the road and making it riprap there? I'm kind of confused about, or is it going to be a round circle and then riprap on the other side of it?
No, you are correct. Your first impression, the road, once you go over the curb, there'll be a guardrail, and the slope will start immediately along this pinch point between the two trees. There will be no flat area behind the back edge of curb along this section in order to honor the 35-foot no disturb and the 50-foot no build.
Okay. And then how are you planning to set the erosion control without, and setting this riprap without getting into the 35? Are you setting the erosion control or the limit of work kind kind of up gradient of the 35 and you won't grade past there? Because it looks like, again, where the text riprap appears, that the actual riprap area is extremely close to the 35. So how are you managing that you're going to work so close to the 35 without actually getting the equipment in there?
Right, so, so the cul-de-sac is going to sit up higher, obviously, than than where we have shown our erosion control. It's anywhere from 2 to 8 feet higher. And so we're going to be building up this area in the vicinity of the proposed riprap. So the silt fence, the erosion control will go in first, and then we have 1 to 2 feet, in some areas it's a little bit more than that, room between the erosion control and, let's call it, our toe of slope. Earth will be used and compacted in lifts in order to have a structural base to support the road. And then as we approach our finished grade that will receive the riprap, a machine would be sitting in the cul-de-sac and then reaching out with its bucket to place the riprap on that side slope. So we don't need to have a machine down anywhere near the erosion control line. All this work will be done from the cul-de-sac with the arm of the excavator reaching out and placing the riprap on that slope.
Okay, thank you.
All set then, Vanessa?
Yes.
Okay, there's still a stormwater plan that needs to be approved for this. Is that correct?
So under the state and as well as the town stormwater permit, I don't believe you've applied for that yet. Just by the look on your face, it appears you may not. It is a newer permit with the town of Danvers stormwater.
That's through Stephen King's
Yes.
office, right? So we have a full stormwater report that accompanied our notice of intent filing. If there is another application form that needs to be filled out, we can certainly do that. We do have a copy of it, and when we designed the system, we followed those rules in addition to DEP's rules. And if there's another form that needs to be filled out, we're happy to do that.
Yeah,
Is
so
Steve
that's-
King reviewed and approved?
So this project has a three-prong kind of permitting approach. So step one right now is Conservation Commission. This is the first hearing. And then they're going in front of the planning board for the subdivision at the end of October. And that, just on that review, stormwater is also reviewed. And then standalone, regardless of Conservation and Planning Board, this project triggers a Town of Danvers stormwater management permit through Steve King's office. So that's who you would talk to for that one.
All right, we'll definitely double check with him. Most of the towns that we work in, so everyone who has an MS4 permit in place has a need and a requirement under EPA to have these things in place. And a lot of the local rules when it comes to stormwater management have some exclusions, something along the lines of if you're filing with the Conservation Commission or the Planning Board and you're submitting a full stormwater report, sometimes you don't have to fill out the application. I will definitely, though, follow up with Stephen about that.
What's
Okay.
the
Well, I also,
Mr. Chairman, what is the trigger for the stormwater? What's the threshold?
so that's what I was also about to note. I think what Chris had just said is accurate in that if a subdivision project is triggering other permits, that permit process would be achieved through that stormwater report. But now the Town of Danvers stormwater bylaw was recently updated to have a minor and a major project provision. So for example, one of these single-family home lots, if it's above an acre and they're proposing alteration of an acre or more, that now triggers an individual stormwater permit where it hadn't 2 years ago. A single-family home could alter all day without ever seeing Steve King. And now, if that alteration is above a certain threshold, engineering now reviews. So there very well could be individual lots within this subdevelopment that also require a separate stormwater permit on its own.
And that would take into consideration any discharge to surrounding property?
I'm not sure how Steve reviews those and what that is, but I would assume so. It takes into account the whole watershed of the area.
Yeah, different towns handle it different ways. In Middleton, if we get a subdivision approved, for example, every lot that we go back to ask for a building permit, we have to go through a checklist for the stormwater management permit, for example, in Middleton. And if you fill out the form and you've exceeded the amount of impervious surface by more than a certain square footage, it's 600 square feet, for example, then the stormwater management permit would apply. And every town does it a little bit differently, but we'll be sure to double check with Stephen.
What's your largest lot size there?
So we have a couple of odd-shaped lots because the property, the perimeter that we started with is a little bit strange in shape. And so we have our Lot 5 and our Lot 2 have more than twice the requisite area because they have some funky shapes in the back and the existing condition. So we have a couple of lots that are rather large because of that.
Thank you.
What's that, Mike?
Yes, thanks.
Just pursuant to that last question, which lots fall within mostly our 100-foot jurisdiction?
Sure. So today, the way we've presented the plan, we have proposed grading for the roadway that falls within 100 feet. So this permit would be for the subdivision. We're anticipating that this permit would be issued for the subdivision roadway construction and the construction of all of our stormwater management infrastructure and any other infrastructure associated with the roadway. But then we'll be coming back to you, definitely for Lot 5. In a minute, we're going to talk about A&R Lot 4, because a little bit of its driveway is out on the street here, and it's within the jurisdiction.
What about your subdivision Lot 4?
So subdivision Lot 4 is this guy right here. Today, the way we're presenting it, it would not require a permit. But if someone came forward and wanted to have some activity within 100 feet, then we would have to come back and see you. But I don't think that's necessary. It's a nice shaped lot, left to right, and so we kept it out of the buffer zone.
Okay, but the part that is in the buffer zone is still part of the lot? Or who owns that property?
That's right. This is part of this lot, but we're not proposing any activity as part of the house construction.
Okay, how about up front, the two that border on North Street?
So these two here.
Right, it looks like
So the buffer zone extends into this.
from the back part of their property.
I'm sorry, out here?
No, go back towards the wetland, in your stormwater management grid there.
Yep,
That's part of their property, right?
it is.
So they would have to, they're within our jurisdiction, so we need to see that.
Well, we're asking you to approve the work associated with the stormwater management area as part of the permit that we've applied for. And so the only individual lot construction we believe that we have to come back and see you about is the one that we've applied for tonight, which is this A&R lot here that has some activity here.
That's the driveway.
Okay. And then where does the water, when it leaves this wetland system, where does it, I know there's a street beyond there, right, to the north?
There is. So it does follow a rather circuitous route. My best guess, having followed the USGS maps and the GIS mapping, it looks like it leaves our site and then crosses under Locust Street and eventually heads out to Frostfish Brook eventually, and then passes under and through the Beverly Airport. And then after that, from what I could tell, it looked like it's tributary to the Bass River, which eventually ends up in
That's a
Beverly
much larger
Harbor.
scale. I'm thinking, where does the water cross Locust Street? I'm thinking
So
it goes
it's,
into the wetlands by this Holly Hill subdivision?
It's
About discharge, Peter?
Yeah, like you said, the water discharge is more or less to the north, but I have
yeah.
to think that
So
it bends to
it
the
goes
east.
into a pipe back underground, and then it goes through this next project, takes a right, crosses
Locust Street.
crosses under Locust Street, and then as I followed it on the regional maps, it looked like it's a tributary to Frostfish Brook, and Frostfish Brook eventually enters the airport property in Beverly, and it looks like, it's hard to tell, but best guess, looking at the topography, looks like from there it went into the Bass River and then out to Beverly Harbor.
So we're really only talking about stormwater off of the road surface that's going to be a different characteristic than it is now. That's the only impervious surface other than moving roofs too, I guess.
And the driveways, and,
Right.
and,
The roadway.
there's a lot that goes into the stormwater
Just
report.
wondering how much additional water is gonna be flowing out that way. And, we don't need to know right now, but just,
But that's
I'll
what
ask
your
that question
plan will
again.
address, won't it? Your stormwater will address that?
So it already has, so we've got a stormwater report that we submitted with our application that's about that thick that Mr. King is going to review, and it shows how we comply with DEP's 10 stormwater management standards. If you'd like, I can go through each of them to tell you how we comply.
No, but
No, no,
may I just, well, what the neighbors are gonna wanna know, are you gonna be adding any more water to their problems?
Sure, I understand. So the fair answer to that question is, as soon as we cut down a tree or add 1 square inch of pavement, more water is going to flow off of the land. That's the fact of any
It's
development.
your job to control that.
That's correct. And the way we do that is that we hold the water back. We calculate how much water comes off of the project in the existing condition, so we know where does the water go today. We go out and we take a look at the topographic mapping that we did, which is by instrument survey, and through our experience having done these many, many times over the last 30 years, we know how to analyze the direction of the stormwater flow, and then when we're designing these things, we also have to determine in the proposed condition where we're sending water. And wherever we send water, we have to make sure that we're controlling the peak rate of runoff, and it cannot be more than the peak rate that leaves the site at our comparison points. And the only way to do that is to build detention basins. Sometimes we can build them above ground, and sometimes we build them underground, and they're just large chambers that allow some water to infiltrate, and we hold it back, and we have a smaller pipe leaving it to control the rate of the water leaving it, and that's how we're able to do that.
okay, that's just something we have to pay attention to.
Yeah, you're not proposing, you never considered any detention or retention ponds. It's the underground system you're relying on, right?
So, truth be told, we looked at it both ways, just to see what it would look like, and Mr. Hernandez felt that it would be a nicer looking project if the stormwater management area was underground, and that's a very expensive system
I was gonna say, it's gonna
compared to digging
cost a lot more.
a hole.
Compared to making a hole with some pipes.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's going to be a nice open grass area, on the surface.
Okay, the board all set, questions and comments? And now I can open it up to the public. Sir? Just please go up to the microphone, tell us your name and your address, and tell us what you think.
I live at 7th Pentucket Lane, and on one side of my house it's nothing but water. It stays there for days. You can't even put grass on it. In my driveway, I used to get the water, I had to dig holes in my yard and put rocks in so it'd get deeper so the water wouldn't go up my driveway. I mean, they want to build another place, make it higher. I'm going to get all kinds of water. That's all I can tell you.
How long have you lived there, sir?
41 years,
And you've always gotten water?
yeah. And my street, I got one drain down the end, and if I get a good downpour, the water just lays there in the street. It's on one side, my side. So I just want to tell you,
Could you point to us on the map, just
that's
about
all
where
I
your-
have to
your
say.
house is? Could you point to us on the map about where your house is?
I don't know if he can do that.
Right.
Just give us a general idea.
be the back?
Yeah, and just, Calumet, I mean, you can see Pentucket, your street name or something, from Calumet.
So Mr. Kiley's house is, Mr. Kiley's house is right here. That's your house, that's the driveway.
Is that lower than where your proposed houses are?
Yeah,
It is.
Yes, it is.
'cause it slopes down to the north.
When I get a rainstorm, it just lays there. It takes days before it even settles. It's a wetland.
Yeah, this is the wetland.
The wetland.
It's a wetland.
Are you all set, sir? Does anyone else have a question or comment? Sir?
Armando Maffeo, 8 Calumet Road. My concern is the rainwater. If I could have this stick here. So I get the understanding with the road and all the drainage over here, all that, but I don't see anything about this house, or this house. Where's the rainwater here gonna go? Because it slopes down, and like the gentleman said, it comes, Mr. People here, my house, Mr. People here, my house, and the gentleman here, and then it continues on. And it goes at a slope, and it goes downhill. And we all know that rainwater goes downhill.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
We have a digital person raising their hand.
Is someone's hand up? Okay.
I'm John Bebo, 10 Calumet Road, next door neighbor to Armando Maffeo. As I look at the plan there, first I have some photographs of water, just from the last storm and this past winter, the way it all flows through. May I borrow your pointer? Will that be possible? Yeah, please. My property line-
Excuse me, sir. Can you take the microphone with you so the people at home can hear you?
Yes, I will.
Thank you.
My property line starts right here and continues down to about this area over here. This is my home. The water flows through, it all generates up in the Army Reserve area up on that hill. And first I have a question. If this wetland here that they say there's a pipe that goes through there, when was the last time they inspected it? I don't know if they have, because the water just doesn't flow here. It flows this way. I have a river, I have a photograph of a river flowing through my yard and through my driveway and down onto Calumet, where the catch basin is. I've been able to slope my property such that it doesn't intrude upon my house, but any more water will be a problem. The road that they propose to come to the cul-de-sac has 2 storm drains down in this particular area over here that's supposed to feed into this underground system that they have there. But the water doesn't flow there. It flows here. Through Brian and Erin Laskin's property, through their backyard, into my backyard, and down into Mr. Maffeo's yard and off onto Calumet Road. I don't know if it's within your scope of your permitting or your thoughts here, but the grade of this road also isn't necessarily even with the contour of the land right now. If you look at the diagram that he's prepared, it shows the general contour of the land and the grade of the road, and it's not even, it's raised at some points.
Excuse me, can I interrupt for just 1 second?
Yes.
Our jurisdiction is pretty much within that yellow circle
Okay.
around the wetlands.
Yeah.
And this area down here?
Right, the same colored circle. So what you're asking and you're concerned about is stormwater management.
Yes, stormwater
It's not,
management.
it's not in our jurisdiction. I mean, you
But the
have valid
stormwater
concerns.
does the stormwater go down to this area? Is this part of your jurisdiction also?
Yeah.
This is what he's going to be talking about in a little bit, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, so that's
And-
separate. You were just pointing where water was flowing towards your
Well, I'm
property.
just telling you where it's flowing now on my property. It's generating from this particular area off of the Army Reserve Center. As he stated earlier, there's supposedly a pipe that goes under here and takes it all that way. I'm telling you,
Okay.
it doesn't. And it needs to be inspected, or some sort of provisions need to be taken before I feel that you go ahead with this project, because the water is not going as he says it goes. The gentleman that spoke over there is up behind us over here. There's a tremendous amount of water that's going that way from this wetland, and it's not all going there.
Okay,
So-
good, thank you.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I would just like to address staff. How do the neighbors get to address the stormwater issues? Is it when we change the way we handle the stormwater regs? Is it done at the planning board more so than here?
You mean site-specific, or just in general where stormwater?
Well, more where, I mean, would they be better off going to the planning board?
Yeah.
Addressing at the planning board?
Absolutely, and I would
Because
say,
that's where they address the roadway and the,
yes. So I do want to clarify that the Conservation Commission does have jurisdiction over stormwater property. So the discharge that is coming from the wetland on the bottom, they of course want to know the activity of that water, what it's going to be pre and post development. So the issues overall are scoped out in that stormwater report. But when this goes in front of the planning board, and again, I just want to remind the audience that this isn't the first and only meeting that this will be discussed. This is not ending tonight. This is the initial opening discussion. The board can't even pass the project tonight. And then it will be discussed at planning board. At that meeting at the planning board, that's where lighting, sidewalks, lots, those are all discussed, buffers of trees. That's also where stormwater is discussed. And I also would just welcome anyone that's in the audience that has questions. You're welcome to call Town Hall at Steve King in Engineering and just staff to ask those general questions too. And we can also pass those off to the applicant to have prepared to answer at the next hearing. So I that's really, and to answer your question, I know that was a long answer, I
Thank you.
apologize,
No, that's
Mike,
a
but I
good
wanted
answer
to preface
because
that.
Just
they,
to clarify.
when are you going to the planning board?
Yep.
Well, you too, because that's a special.
So I know that you mentioned that the planning board meeting isn't until October, but I believe our first public hearing is next week.
Oh, I apologize. I'm just going off my mental note, so I would say,
Sure.
if you've been notified, follow that.
So I can tell you that what's in my schedule, just because we're here in a public forum. I've got Danvers Planning Board on my schedule for September 14th.
So for the benefit of the people here, they know.
Absolutely.
Good luck to you, sir. I live at 287 Locust.
Yes, you would have been notified, if you were notified of this hearing, were you notified of this hearing? Then I believe I think it's been October 20.
Really? So I get my information from Attorney McCann.
Okay.
And normally when a subdivision plan is submitted to the planning board office sends out notices to abutters as part of that process. So if you haven't received it yet, I'll check with Attorney McCann tomorrow morning to find out. Maybe it's been postponed because maybe the notices didn't go out. That's a good question.
Yeah, we'll figure this out, but we've been operating under the sense that this is going to be at the end of October for planning board.
Okay.
I ordered food.
Hold on, sorry, Brian, I don't want to cut you off, but I just want to make sure we stay in order.
Yeah. I just wanted to let you know what I had in my calendar, but that may not be the case, so just
The environmental.
look at the
Okay.
website, contact the planning board office.
Yes.
They'll definitely tell you when the public hearing is.
Yes.
That's just what I have in my calendar, so.
I just want to say, I just want to make sure.
You just have to go to the microphone, you have to make sure the chair calls in. I'm sorry, for the minutes purpose, we just need names
John
and,
Bebo again, 10 Calumet. I just want to make sure that the meeting doesn't occur without us being notified.
of course,
And
that would
again,
not happen.
I just make it clear, we're not against the development. I think it's going to be a wonderful addition to the area. I'm happy that they're staying within the lot sizes that we all had to adhere to in our homes, but we don't want water in our homes. So I'm looking forward to be invited to the next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Does anyone else have?
We still had a
One on
person
the
on.
I'm sorry. Actually, you know what? This person's had their hand up, so why don't we, there's a LM that's online that
That
has their
might be
hand raised.
Lisa, I actually spoke. Yeah, Lisa, if you still want to speak, you have the floor.
Yes. Yes, I'd like to. My name is Lisa Mullins. I live at 9 Pentucket Lane. And I really want to speak to the issue that the first gentleman that talked about. We're flooded every day of the year. We talk about this 24-inch pipe, and it's emptying out on my property. We can't walk on there. I mean, it sounds like there's a great water management system for this new development, but it's going to funnel right into my property. And, on any given day, there's no holding area for it. The stream isn't deep enough to support it. Where is the water going to go?
Okay, it's a valid concern. I mean, I wanted to see it too. So, you know,
Yeah, I mean, you could come to my house any day, look in my driveway. I mean, we were mowing my son has a ride-on lawnmower. He was mowing the lawn. I had him take pictures of all the ruts, and he said he couldn't mow the whole lawn because he couldn't move the lawnmower because it just kept sinking.
okay. You're at 9,
9 Pentucket, yes,
and the previous gentleman was at 7?
yes.
Okay,
Yeah, we have real water issues over here. We're very low.
so we will take a look, but like I said, it's as much as a stormwater issue as
Sure.
anything else.
But I just wanted to make sure we address the issue that,
Oh, no,
you
good,
know,
thank
there's
you.
just
Thanks
much
for
too much
bringing it up.
water.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead, Georgia.
I just wanted to confirm, so the planning board hearing is set for October 26th. You guys will be notified as abutters well before that meeting, at least a week and a half in advance. So you'll get that letter.
Still a ways off.
And that meeting is all virtual, it's not in person as well.
Okay, Lisa, was that her name?
Matt has his hand.
Are you all set, Lisa?
Yes, thank you very
Okay,
much.
thank you. Mr. Duggan?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Matthew Duggan, Selectman. I have 3 points I'd like to make. First, it's important that you take the comments that you've just heard from the abutters seriously, because this project has the potential to really make a bad situation even worse. So I know that you often speak about the purview of the commission and the jurisdiction, but I think that the wetlands that exist around this perimeter aren't clearly defined. It sounds like there's a perennial stream up here in this area that hasn't, perennial stream that hasn't been clearly defined. When the applicant mentioned where the water goes, it sounded like it wasn't really positive. There needs to be a deeper dive to understand what that pipe is about, the source of the water on the North Street side, and then where it goes after it leaves this property. Now, from what I know, there's a significant amount of water on the north side of Wenham Street. There's like a large meadow in the back across from Agway that's always wet. I think there's a stream there. It goes underneath Wenham Street and through the Putnamville Playground, down through the woods, comes out by the high school. It's Frostfish Brook. It weaves through Woodvale. It's oftentimes, it's just a small babbling brook, but other times has a considerable amount of water in it. It drains out under Conant Street at 62, and then it goes into the Porter River by Plains Park. So to me, that's the flow.
Matt, just to interrupt. That flow at the Putnamville Playground, I think that elevation is higher than this project. So I don't think the water running out of
All
here
right.
is going into that.
That's fine, that's my understanding. Back to this storm trap. It sounds like a complicated system. We heard that it's dependent on having the storm drains kept clean, and that will only happen once the town accepts this roadway. That's something that happens at town meeting, and it doesn't happen quickly. We have a number of roads that have not been accepted by the town. That means that someone needs to keep those drains clean.
Right.
Probably the developer, and I'll tell you, there's a poor record of that. I was up on Whipple Hill earlier this summer. At the end of Whipple Hill, a sandpiper down by the Archdiocese property, those traps are all full, right to the very top to the grates. So they're not being kept clean. So that's just an example of being dependent on a developer to keep them clean. Saying that the town's gonna take care of them, that's down the road, years down the road. So
Good point.
that storm trap will fail, and I think it will just exuberate what you've heard today from these residents. that water will just kind of overflow that system, and it'll just cause a lot of erosion, I think, around this area. I'm not sure what the fail-safe system is, or what the overflow, how it works, but it sounds like it's something that you should investigate further. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Anyone else? All set? Did you want to speak any further to Lot 4, which is on North Street? Or did all your talk,
So,
I have an understanding what you're asking for there.
right, so we're talking about the notice of intent application for the subdivision.
Yeah.
So that would be a separate discussion for Lot 4, which would be your next agenda item.
Right, but we kind of lumped the two together, so if you want to, we're just going to vote to continue the public hearing. So
Okay.
now is a good time for you to, whatever you want to tell us about that.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Sure, so no need to read anything into
Peter,
the...
I would open the hearing for Lot 4 as well.
Yeah.
A&R Lot 4. So I know we broke them together, but he only opened the first one.
We did open for Lot 4, and we agreed to let him speak to the whole subdivision piece.
Got it. So then I would open one of them hasn't been opened yet, and I believe that's the subdivision roadway. So I would open the subdivision roadway.
Right.
And that way you can continue your discussion on.
Okay, so that's item number 5.
Number 5.
Right? Okay. So, next up, we're going to discuss a notice of intent application for 69 North Street.
It doesn't have a
The
file.
applicant is John Hernandez. There was no DEP file number.
This is Lot 4 now?
This is
Yes.
A&R Lot
Yeah.
4.
Items 4 and 5.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, Chris Sparagus from the Engineering and Survey Office of Williams and Sparagus. And before you is the plan of A&R Lot 4 that has frontage on North Street. It's an existing lot that was approved as part of an A&R plan that was endorsed by the Planning Board back in April. And we are proposing a single-family home with a proposed driveway that would come out from the property and enter North Street, where we have shown a proposed driveway. There is a wetland across the street from us on the other side of North Street. It is that B-series wetland that we talked about. There are 15 wetland flags, B1 through B15. It is a bordering vegetative wetland that has a buffer zone that extends onto this Lot 4. And you can see the buffer zone lines. The green line at the bottom of the plan is the wetland. The red line is the 35-foot no disturb, and the 50-foot no build comes next, and then the 100-foot buffer zone. A portion of the driveway, portion of the proposed driveway lies within 100 feet. And as we developed this plan, we sat down with staff to review how the filing should happen, because this was one of the first projects that was going to come in under the new bylaw. It's kind of an odd situation because the wetland is across the street and there's pavement that separates us, from the wetland. But we do propose a very small amount of activity here in order to build the driveway, and a portion of it falls between 50 and 35. So what we did is we calculated how much land exists in this zone, and then calculated the percentage that this section of the driveway takes up. And I'm going to just refer to the notice of intent narrative that describes those numbers. So the total area between 35 and 50, which is the no-build zone area, is approximately 2,487 square feet. And what we're proposing to alter within 50 feet is 90.3 square feet. So 90.3 divided by the total land within that 35 to 50-foot zone yields a percentage of 3.64 alteration proposed. And so we're seeking a waiver under the 50-foot no-build zone to allow that small section of the driveway to enter North Street. That concludes my formal presentation, but I'm here to answer any questions. Thank you.
Okay, any questions? Chelsea, do you have any questions?
No questions.
Mike, any questions?
Just, does the driveway, do you cross the sidewalk there?
Yes.
So you'll be just digging up the sidewalk and putting down in that area, is it asphalt?
It is an asphalt sidewalk. That's the two lines that are close together here and here. That's the sidewalk along North Street. And so we'll have to cut the sidewalk there, do the driveway, and it'll just be, you know, a continuous slope. There won't be an up and down or anything like that.
That's a pretty rough sidewalk all along North Street there.
It's not the greatest sidewalk.
All right, that's my only question, and it's a small area.
Yeah, it's,
Okay, thanks. Ann, question?
no questions.
Vanessa, any questions?
No questions.
Okay, any questions from the public?
Okay.
No?
No, I
Okay.
think I need to lower her.
We can't do it.
Okay, so since we have no TEP file number
Can't
for,
vote on
for
it.
either of these, we have to just vote to continue. So we are presuming we'd have this again on the 23rd? Actually, while we're still in a, I just want,
He has a question.
while we're in an open hearing, well, actually, we'll go with you first, and then I'll just gonna,
Real quick, if it pleases the board, sometime between now and the next meeting, would you like to go out and take a look at the property?
yes, that's
Yeah.
what I was about to say.
Is it all flagged?
Well, you tell me what you'd like flagged, and we'll stake out anything you'd like to see.
Well, they do
That goes for
flags up
both,
there.
for both projects.
Well, I think typically what the commission has seen, what I'll recommend for you is that you usually like to see at least the 50-foot no disturb line and the 100-foot. I think right now what the commission is going to go out and see is a big open field. So seeing those buffers is probably pretty easily visible. Is that correct, Chris? If they were to do stakes or something, you'd really be able to visualize that?
Sure, the buffer zones are a good idea, and you can see the pipe, the 24-inch pipe.
What
and-
about the roadway?
So we can stake out the center of the cul-de-sac and the buffer zones to make it really easy to see where we are. Since
I've
that-
already been there. I met the owner that bought the McGilvery property. 'Cause
Oh,
my
Mr.
wife
Her-
and I walked there.
Oh, Mr. Hernandez? Yep, he's a really nice man.
Yeah.
What about a
Huh?
date?
Say again?
What about a date?
Do you want to just do like we normally do?
Wanna
You
throw
just
some dates
poll
out?
us
'Cause I
and
have
you
my
know,
book.
propose a few dates, and we'll say when we're available.
Okay, we are
Uh,
losing our afternoon time, but I think we
Right.
still have it. That, Chris, would you want to try for next, well, of course, prior to the next hearing. So in the next 2 weeks, we can work to email and schedule something.
Maybe next weekend.
Sure, that would be fine with us. You know, that's, just let us know, and
Oh,
Would
it's all
you-
with us. I don't know, George, I don't know if you,
Yeah, I can check.
Find
Do
the
you mind
time.
checking with Mr. Hernandez if he'd be okay with the public coming? Because
so the
we have
pub,
been asked before if the public can join, so.
right,
Us now.
so typically the party line is no public would be allowed to come onto the property, but what I'll do is I'll check with Attorney McCann and Mr. Hernandez and let you know.
as part of that visit too, I'd like to have some overview of the water flow off of the property, just for our own education. And I want to be able to talk to it, because I'm sure people are going to bring it up again at the next meeting.
So is it more appropriate to talk about, so I have answers to all of the questions that were raised tonight, and we could sit here for the next hour if you'd like,
Right.
or we can wait till the next meeting, and, because I don't think we can do it in the field
No.
No,
necessarily.
we would not do it in the field.
Right.
Okay. But, you know, I think, you know, we could just go to the corner of whatever it is, Lot 2 or whatever, and get a feel for how the land drops
Yeah,
off.
you're more than welcome to walk, I can take you wherever you'd like to see on the property, and at the next meeting, I'm happy to answer all of the questions that were raised tonight.
Okay.
Okay.
I want to see inside that barn. I've lived on North Street for 30 years, and I don't think I've ever seen any activity in that barn.
Can we continue this?
Okay, so I guess our next step is to continue the public
Continue.
hearing. So if someone can make a motion to that effect, and we have to do it twice, so
Okay.
I'll make a motion to continue the public hearing for 69 North Street, subdivision roadway, to our next meeting.
and this is item 4 on the
This is
agenda.
item 4 on the agenda.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And then I have to do another one.
You're on a roll. Go
Yeah.
ahead.
Okay, yeah. And I'd like to continue the hearing for 69 North Street, A&R Lot 4, to the next hearing.
Second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
And she didn't mention the date, but it would be September the 23rd. And just as a follow-on to that, Georgia will work with about setting up a site visit where most people can.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you now. Thank you.
Okay, up next is an informal discussion on a proposed project change for Lot 8 on Collin County Drive, DEP file number 14-1331. I see, is Scott online? Is that?
I'm here, Mr. Chair. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes, you can. Yes, we can. Go ahead, Scott.
Good evening. For the record, Scott Cameron with the Moore and Cameron Group, 66 Elm Street, Danvers, Massachusetts. We are the civil engineer surveyor for this property. And I appreciate your patience remotely tonight. I'm in 3 towns at the same time this evening. So I do have, I can either share my screen, Mr. Chair, or...
Yes, please do.
David want to pull it up, doesn't matter to me.
Scott, I believe you have the power, and it may be easier so we
Chelsea.
can see your mouse. If you're okay with that,
George
you're
just
welcome to
sent
pull it
around
up.
I saw it. I didn't.
Give it a quick read if you can.
So just to refresh your memories, back in January, we came in with the architectural plans per the order conditions, presented the final lot design. We made some adjustments based on your feedback, and then you approved the plan. This was kind of the final construction plan with the architecture completed and the final site design. As they're getting ready to break ground, they've actually excavated the foundation out, but so this is underway. But the architect and the developer we're taking a closer look at the retaining wall along the house here, and this retaining wall was the subject of a lot of discussion throughout this whole one. And they made a decision that instead of constructing, what is effectively a wall all the way down and then, a foundation to the house, well, what if we just make the foundation a few feet deeper and eliminate all the wall or most of the wall? So we had submitted this to Georgia a few weeks ago. We I guess, admittedly, we feel we're decreasing some of the approved work, and what we are proposing here is just to remove was effectively 100 feet of 4 to 6 foot retaining wall along this entire stretch, and what would happen is this would just be graded, loamed, and seeded, and then you'd come up to this side of the dwelling, which would be just a little larger foundation on that side. So this gets the wall, the structural wall, another 8 feet away from the wetland. We still need a little bit in the front here because of the driveway and the garage to get access to that, but you would step down to that back elevation. So basically everything in this backyard would be pretty much at existing grade now. And so our hope tonight in presenting this to you is that that you also agree that this is reducing work and we can handle this administratively and continue on our way as the again the foundation is excavated and ready to go. So that's it. It wasn't really too much more to it than that.
Okay, so what you're proposing is that this is a minor modification.
Yeah, well, the commission, the regulations don't really discriminate between minor and major. What we were saying is we're proposing to do less work than what's on the approved plan. So we just, we wanted to make sure we kept you informed. So we, you didn't come out and say, well, why is this wall not as big as we approved it to be? So what we're hoping is that you agree this is less. I don't believe it requires any modification to the order. It's simply kind of a file update. This is what we're proposing to do for the wall here. It's less work, and we would address it, on the final as-built.
Okay, I'm going to save mine to the end. Chelsea, do you have any questions or comments?
Yeah, so what was the original intent of this wall? Why was it put there in the first place if we're removing it?
The original intent was they wanted to maintain at-grade access all the way around the property. You can see how we're up around elevation 60, so you could walk around at grade. You wouldn't have to, this wouldn't change as much, so it's a much shallower, it's a flatter area.
Right.
And this change, so now what they'd have to do is they'd have to walk down to this area through, it'd be kind of some steps, and I don't, but you're making up that grade in a shorter distance, so it eliminates the need. And effectively, what we're doing is coupling. We're making, the foundation for the house is going to be there anyways. We're just making it a few feet deeper.
Okay.
Instead of the wall, and again, it's 8 feet further away from the wetland.
Okay. I think that's all I had.
All set then, Chelsea?
Yeah.
Mike?
So, Scott, you didn't just go to bed one night and think, oh, maybe I should come to the board and do this. So what happened that you're here? I mean, did the homeowner come to you? Did the developer say, look, I don't want to spend the money to build the wall, come up with something else? I need to know more.
Frankly, we're trying to do what we feel you want us to do, is be open and keep you up to date on any changes to the plan. So the reason they came to me they came to me and said they prefer to do this. They're paying more money for the foundation because they're going to need to add rebar and steel. They just felt this was, as they're getting ready to go, that this would be a better finish for them. Maybe it gives them, I don't know, maybe there's a little.
So what might be better for the
side yard
homeowner
here.
may not be better for the overall project or the wetland. And, this was presented as a good thing before, and now it's not.
I'm not saying it's not a good thing. I'm saying it's what they've come back and asked to do is less work.
Yeah, but I'm saying if we deny this, all it means is the homeowner gets what they originally bargained for, and what was originally proposed and approved.
Okay. All right. I that's why we're here talking about it. I suppose. I guess this wall was a lot of discussion for us during this process, and we're almost fully compliant with the new bylaw, with the 35 setback with this change. So I guess I'd like to understand whether you think it's better or worse for the interests of the bylaw and what we're trying to do here.
How do we determine that? I mean, I don't think we can just sit here and make that decision. How much wall was proposed, and how much are we not building?
It's roughly 100 feet of walls disappearing. I'll pull back the original plan.
And
Now
how,
it's probably,
so that's
60%
that's
of the
an
wall has been
impact,
removed.
one way or another.
Yes.
That's not minor.
Is that your final comment or question?
That's it, yeah.
Okay. Ann, any comments or questions?
By eliminating the wall, the land is more accessible to the wetlands, is that correct? I wasn't around in 2017, so I'm not familiar with this project.
That's correct. The grade more or less doesn't have to change on that side, so we'd be able to maintain the grades that are there now.
Okay, so it's closer, is it closer to the wetland now? The house itself?
No, we pulled the structural work further away, is what we're doing.
Okay, so you've pulled it further away, you've eliminated the wall, you want to eliminate the wall, and it's closer to the, so what kind of runoff might there be, or any issues with runoff down into the wetlands from the house?
There's no change there. We're still bringing, the driveway goes to the street, and we're bringing the roof to the dry well on the front.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Vanessa?
Thank you. So, yes, there was a lot of debate about the wall and where to place it, but with the fence being on top of the wall, as outlined in that detail, it's a little bit cut off on this view, but it's kind of to the right of the lot plan. Yes, thank you. The 42-inch fence on the top of the wall. That at least was providing a separation from the yard into the buffer zone. So if this is just going to be is it going to be like loamed and seeded? How is there going to be any separation or protection of these buffer zone areas from the lawn? Because I can see like objects getting down there a lot more easily than they would have with the fence and the wall. Soccer balls or frisbees or whatever ending up down there, any trash ending up down there, people going down there, encroaching into those areas. What's the plan for keeping that area naturalized?
Well, first off, the bylaw does require us to stake out and sign the conservation jurisdiction, so we have to put the Danvers placards along that limit of work prior to you releasing it under the certificate of compliance. With regards to, soccer balls and, normal kind of use, those small things, if somebody's going to let their yard and their property get cluttered and trashy, and I think it is in the buffer zone. You could certainly make a comment about that and ask them to clean it up, but I've done, is this any really different than most other single family homes around the town? Is this any different? Do you require fences to keep people out of the buffer zones and away from enjoying that resource area and what that offers in other parts of the town? If you're saying that you prefer to have a fence there to create that divide, I think that would be a reasonable compromise, but I question whether that is how you apply this to every property in town.
I think the difference is that this was initially proposed and now it's being taken away versus never being there in the first place.
We admittedly thought you would be excited to be taking this work away. We thought this was a positive change.
Well, I think it's just some concerns about meeting it. And do you feel it is a pretty, so I'm trying to look at the contours here. So through the middle of the house is like 64, and then you're getting down to kind of 58. So do you think you can, it's a small area on the side of the house for sure. Mm-hmm. You already, talked about that. Do you think that, and it's one thing to put grades on a piece of paper and then entirely another to be able to achieve them during construction. Are you feeling like you can achieve these grades and that it won't be too?
Yes, in fact, it's already graded. It's because they already started the foundation, so we're already there. The work's already rough graded. But yes, I do feel it's very achievable. This is the land's very workable. It's very sandy soil, gravelly sandy soil. It's very easy to work with here. This is in an area where I would be concerned about stabilization and getting the plan to meet this. And we also have, again, the area on the side here. This is relatively flat in this area. We did also, we're adding a slope stabilization to the slope here that you guys added to the plans. So if they're out seeding it with that, they're probably going to seed this whole area with that same seed mix. They're not going to come out with two different, hydro, trucks to do it differently.
Okay, and then where are the conservation medallions being installed?
Those are in the, I don't have the order opened up here, but it's a requirement. It's one of the conditions.
And then were they being, sorry, Scott, I didn't mean to interrupt, go ahead.
It's a standard condition. We go out at the end of the construction when we're ready, and typically we work with the agent and we decide on the areas. I don't have the order open in front of me, and I can't get it on my computer right now. Maybe George, I can opine on that.
I'll pull it up.
I know
right
she
now.
places those.
I just need a second.
Trying to remember if this is one that we asked to install them on the fence on the top of the wall. I can't really
I believe I'm going to check right now, but I believe the markers were supposed to go along the retaining wall where that back pool is, the patio pool, along that line. So there's none
And
proposed
I can't
in the
remember if it was
lawn
25 or what the spacing was on them, but when we don't have a fence or something to put them on, typically what we'll do is put a cedar post, and they'll go on the cedar post.
Yeah, I'd like to, I know Georgia's looking for the order right now, but I'm curious to see what we had said at the time on the medallions.
Conservation Commission medallions must be installed along the limit of the 200-foot riverfront area in visible areas. The medallions may be fixed upon the proposed fence line and/or on 3-foot-high timber posts. So if that 200-foot riverfront area line is behind the proposed retaining wall with that pool area. So it's only along that blue line is where the no disturb markers were proposed.
Yeah, okay.
So we would
So
have
we
to
didn't specify
condition
anything
those?
to the
No, nothing.
left.
No.
Georgia, was that a special condition? Because there's typically a standard condition that requires it along any buffer zone or limit of work.
That was a special condition written in.
So if it's in the standard conditions, is my recollection. Maybe, I don't know, it's changed.
So
Maybe
this
it's
was on
changed.
the last amended order of conditions for Lot 8.
Mm-hmm. Well, anyways, I don't think it's, I think the applicant would be perfectly fine setting the wooden, stakes. We typically do it, I recommend a cedar, just so it's not something that will rot. But I don't know if I've done one of these where we didn't put the medallions in.
Mr. Chair, I think we're getting away from the issue. The issue is whether this is an insignificant project change, so.
Right, we're
talking about
discussing,
100
Mike, and I
feet
was
of
gonna,
wall.
I understand that. I was just gonna let people speak their piece, and then I was gonna poll the members to get their feeling on the overall proposal. Vanessa, are you all set?
Yeah, I don't have any more questions at this time.
Okay, so we're not really voting on anything tonight, so we're just trying to get a feel for where people would lean towards. And I think since Mike is jumping at the bit to express his opinion, we'll let you go first.
Well,
So just, tell us what you think, and Scott can listen to what we have to say,
I
and
think
we'll
we
go from
should
there.
deny the request and let them file a formal amendment. And then treat it and address it that way. Maybe we still would go with it, but it shouldn't be just an off-the-cuff thing.
Right. I think what you're saying is that it's not a minor in scope proposal, which would allow it to fit underneath the administrative umbrella.
Yes.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Chelsea, what do you think?
I'm kind of on the fence, pun not intended. Just because it seems like we're just keeping the project as it originally was. Like, with the absence of this wall, the land is going to stay essentially the same, and as long as there's some kind of mitigation to make sure nothing's gonna tumble down that slope, like a silt fence or like the medallions, I'm fine with it. But I think I lean more towards this is minor to me.
Okay, Ann, what do you think?
I guess my feeling is if I understood clearly enough any impact on the wetlands by removing the wall and having the slope as desired, I would feel more comfortable.
You would feel uncomfortable?
I would feel more comfortable if I had a little bit more specifics.
Okay, Vanessa, what do you think?
I'm still kind of weighing this one out. I mean, I definitely can see and appreciate that by not constructing this wall, there's a lot less disturbance going on.
Yeah.
By not putting in all of these blocks and excavating and so on and so forth. But then the thing about it was it did provide a really good separation of the house and yard from the buffer areas. So I'm just trying to figure out how to reconcile the two.
Okay, is that it, Vanessa?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. All right, okay, one thing I'm hearing here is, the impact on the wetlands as they are. But just to take a step back from that, when was the last time the wetlands boundaries were delineated?
Mr. Chair, everything was restaked out prior to the start of construction. The erosion controls are already all in place in this lot. We have been out with town staff to inspect it. The wetland replication work is all complete and actually looks very good. Not the new, we'd have to do a little bit more as part of this order. But the plantings are all, as far as I can see, are thriving. I think, I do want to say too, Mr. Chair, that, many times applicants come in and they change all sorts of stuff on these house builds, and then they come in afterwards. And, we just did one recently where the house was completely changed around, completely different than the original plans, and the commission issued a certificate of compliance. And I think, the homeowners here are trying to do the right thing and working with the commission, but also have to keep in mind their construction schedule, and they've got the foundation hole and want to keep moving forward. So, we're really hoping that the board recognizes that openness and, wanting to do the right thing here. A modification would result in several weeks of delays as public notices need to go out, notwithstanding fees. And, I think these are often things that we address in the field during construction, and they again, I do believe that this is less impact here, and they would be willing, they've been more than happy to work with you on placing medallions along this edge of the work as well. That's been my experience in Danvers for a long time.
Okay, well, I mean, we have recent experience where plans have been approved, which we have an approved plan here, and, things are getting changed, and we want to avoid that. That being said, I can't agree that this is a minor modification and would fit under the administrative modification umbrella. I personally want to see you come back with an amendment proposal to the order of conditions. And you've heard what the other members have said, so you can take that as you will. I'm not sure what how they formally propose for an administrative modification, George. Is there a form that they have to submit for that? Or?
There's not a DEP dedicated form, but the applicant would provide a formal letter in which requesting an official amendment incorporating those changes.
And that would have to go through a public hearing.
And then that would therefore trigger the butter notifications in the public hearing.
Okay, so that's I think you've heard how the members feel, Scott, so you can go from there.
Thank you. Appreciate the feedback.
Okay, so that's it on item number 6.
Did we close it?
It's not a public hearing, it was just a discussion.
Yeah.
Item number 7, the Whipple Hill Subdivision Stormwater Basin. That's John Thompson is, who is going to give us an update on that?
Scott, if you have an update, this has been on the agenda carried over for a long time now, so if you do have something.
I'm not officially, I have not officially been asked to present an update to the commission tonight. I will say that we submitted the work, all the work that was contemplated this spring is complete, except for the detention pond, in which we submitted our field change to the engineering department, which is who we were working with to wrap that up. That is still not reconciled, so nothing has happened on it. We're trying to get that squared away.
What needs to be reconciled?
Finishing it. We're trying to get it finished, and we haven't we haven't closed that loop with the engineering department. Again, we filed information back in July. It's still pending. So we're still waiting
So is
on
there a
that.
difference of opinion? I mean, I don't understand. I mean, we've been talking about this since February. And
I
you just
couldn't
keep
tell you,
hearing that
Mr. Chair.
it's not done
We're
yet.
trying to arrange another site meeting so we can get to the bottom of it. We're not sure. Everything else done. All the wetland plantings are done. The replication work's all done. There was some stabilization items outside of your jurisdiction with the stormwater management system, but all the work, again, we're just waiting on this final thing to be wrapped up. So.
There's nothing going on, is it?
Any of the members of the board have further questions on this particular
No.
item?
Well, I don't know to what extent the rain has created some delays, so
Yeah,
maybe
it's just-
we can put it over one more date.
Our frustration is it's been going on for months, and it
Yeah.
doesn't seem like there's anything going on.
I think that frustration is here as well. We would like to be done with this.
George, is the rain a factor here, or?
Well, I do know the update we got in June from Maureen Cameron prior to, it sounds like this July meeting they had with engineering was that the rain events were obviously causing delay for them to do the grading they needed to do. And then I believe that has also caused some issues in which they need to regrade now. I'm not sure though, so it sounds like, Scott, hopefully you can talk to Steve, and I'll also talk to Steve as well, and we can have more of a formal update on the 23rd.
I think I'll let Mr. Thompson know about that. He's handling the correspondence, I believe, with Public Works.
Okay.
Well, we could have them come in and tell us.
I think it would be nice if I'll formally invite Mr. Thompson as well, but I think it would be nice if he came and gave an update, considering how long it has been.
Okay, so you'll do that between now and our next meeting?
Yeah, I can reach out to Mr. Thompson.
Okay. Okay, that good. Well, if there's no other questions, anyone in the public have any questions? Probably not. It's not a hearing.
No, it's not a hearing. No.
All right, so next up is a continued public hearing for the Second Amendment request for 4 Carroll Way, DEP file number 14-1303. The applicants are Joseph and Ashley Bono. At least Ashley's here. Is there?
I'm here as well, Mr. Chair.
Okay, you
on
can
behalf
speak for them?
of
Fine.
Ashley. I can say, believe her father, Bob, is also here.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have any paperwork on that.
Yeah, this is an update. This is a modification request, and I just wanted to bring the board up to date on this. If you recall, we had been working with, last time we came before you, you had requested that we do a deeper dive into the plantings and engage a wetland scientist to advise on that. So we did engage Rich Kirby from LEC. He conducted a site walk in early August and put together some recommendations on the plantings, and his findings were one of the more substantial ones was that the existing wooded area has really thrived this summer, and there's a lot of native plantings that have filled in along this whole edge. It's actually it's filled up very close to the wall. If you had, maybe you've seen it recently. So what we did is we worked through a planting scheme with some plants that were more shade resilient, and some notes on here that give the landscape professional a little more discretion to pick the spots where they're going to have the highest chance of survival, but in the areas between the gaps and what's growing in naturally. So that information has been updated here on the table. So the trees would include 2 service berries and 2 flowering dogwoods. And then the understory plantings would consist of American hazelnut, viburnum, dogwood, honeysuckle, and witch hazel. And then also identified an area closer to the road that is still somewhat open. There's not a lot of overstory, so we believe we can infill that with some plants, but the note on here to distribute 24 plantings in this open area was added to the plan. And again, this is an update. My hope is we want to finalize this and then submit it to first next week for formal, I guess, hopefully what is our final discussion on this topic at the next meeting, and we can close this and move along to getting it wrapped up. So that was some of the feedback from Rich, and if he would provide a letter basically summarizing all this to you that we would submit with this plan. But we wanted to make sure you were good with this this configuration. And then the other thing we've done, there's been a couple of things that have been going on. So we did go out with the town engineer, Steve King, and Steve wanted to run his camera through the pipe system here to see what was in there. We did do that. We did hit an obstruction where we expected the drywall to be placed, but we couldn't actually see it. So he asked us to add a note to the plan to dig a test hole here just to verify the exact location of that drywall once the work was underway. He also asked us, the Bonos, to plug and abandon the whole thing. So they are going to cap the pipe on this end. This is out of your jurisdiction, but effectively take this offline so it's no longer being used. And with that, the pipe that is here, we're not proposing to move that anymore because we're taking that out of commission. The Bonos have also been working with the budding landowner, which is the Archbishop of Boston, on the cemetery property, and they're working through a conveyance of the title here in this area of the property. So that's in progress. So we're still noting that on here, and they do expect to work that out soon. So we did review that with Steve King. We also, again, we had, just to remind you, we're adding some stabilization to this foundation drain here. That was discussed with Steve King, and Steve asked us also to add a couple of details on here. These are more commercial grade outlet protection details that you would normally see with a municipal road. So we took those same details and kind of scaled them back. Instead of 12 to 18 inch boulders at the end, we put 3 to 6 inch, which is more consistent with the residential use here and the very, very low flows. And then also added a filter fabric under that outlet protection, which will prevent any fines from the soil beneath the riprap from being pulled up in the water and carried off the site. So that's why the filter fabric's important below those stones. Otherwise, that's the extent of the changes we made to the plans. I'm happy to, I know it's been a little while since we last presented this to you, but again, the last conversation we had was you'd like us to engage with Steve King, get his input, add that onto the plan, which we've done. And then hire a wetland scientist to review the plantings here, provide recommendations, and these recommendations did adapt over this growing season as he felt that the wooded area was thriving and had grown in considerably over the course of this growing season. So that's my update. Again, our hope is to incorporate any more comments, feedback from you tonight. Into a final plan, to get that to you first of next week, and then move to wrap this up at the next meeting. Ashley did also meet with Georgia back in August on this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you,
Okay,
Scott.
thanks, Scott.
Okay, let me poll the members. Chelsea, any questions?
I've got nothing.
Mike?
No, I thought the presentation was good. They're making progress. It seems like they're really trying, so
Okay.
look forward to getting the final
Ann?
plan and the
Yeah.
letter from the scientist.
Yes. Ann, any questions?
The plantings, I'm fully appreciating the nature of the plantings and the fact that they've then been growing in. We had a lot of rain, so that really helped. But it sounds very good. Sounds very good. And the taking care of capping the pipe and taking care of that issue that was hanging around there too is very good. Okay, thank you. Good.
Vanessa,
I'm out on this one.
Yeah, she
Oh,
can't.
that's right. I'm sorry, you're right. Okay, one quick question on the, with the abutting properties. I heard you mention the Archdiocese of Boston, but the property owners that sit behind, I mean, there was some question as to how that water was gonna be handled.
It's
And
capped.
It's capped, so the water's gotta go somewhere.
Well,
Yeah, Mr. Chair, that matter is not subject to anything we're doing here with this plan because the town engineer has required the Bonos to cap that pipe.
Yeah.
So they have left the
Then, well,
homeowners behind the property to
We
deal
would
with
like
their
to hear from
issues.
Steve King.
Yep, I understand they
because
have,
there's, you know-
they're working with Steve to resolve that on their own, so
So
that's
can we
nothing to do
arrange to
here.
have
We
Yeah, and
took
I-
the pipe offline.
I do know Steve has confirmed that he is satisfied with them capping the pipe and would like to see it. And the redirect of that water, I do know has been confirmed and verified, but I'll have that in writing from Steve.
so it no
Okay.
longer discharges to the neighbors?
No, they've rechanneled it appropriately the
Diverted
way
it
that Steve
somehow.
had requested.
Okay, good, that's progress, good. Are there any comments from the public? Mr. Duggan?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Matthew Duggan, Selectman. Can you put the slide back up that shows the dry well?
Yeah. Did you hear that?
Dry
Dave?
well that was in
Or
the back by the
Scott?
bocce courts. So that was the pipe that you're talking about capping. That goes into a property that's a neighbor that's on the other side of that retaining wall. So what was the original purpose of the dry well? Why is it no longer needed?
It used to be, it was supposed to be a detention pond at one time, or retention area,
Right.
right?
Scott can correct me on this for the engineering standpoint, but I believe the dry well replaces a portion of the purpose of the original swale.
Or swale.
Swale,
correct,
right,
Scott?
right.
The homeowner's intent was to it was supposed to be graded over land, and the intent here was to provide that connection so that the neighbor could continue to drain their land out this way. That hasn't worked out with the neighbor, and so we've eliminated that situation. That was working with Steve King with his recommendations.
If I may. So the pipe here will be capped, and then this will no longer be needed?
It's been capped, yeah.
So what about, so this is an existing dry well here, right? And I know this is probably not in your jurisdiction. This is still active, this dry well?
That's correct. That's collecting the roof. The roof goes into that, and that does not have any discharge. That just goes into the ground.
Yeah. I'm just, this, again, not in your jurisdiction, but this area is, always seems to be wet. So that doesn't look like it's going to be resolved, right, through this commission?
That's why I'd like to hear what Steve's comments.
And I do also know Steve's working privately with the homeowners of that lot that you just pointed out. They've had, yes, that lot in.
Yeah, I think this is more of a developer issue, right? They created separations in elevation between the lots, and it's just poor, not a poor design, just a poor execution. So I feel for that owner. All right, well, hopefully we can get this resolved once and for all.
Yes, I mean, we
All right, thank you.
definitely have to hear from Mr. King. Thank you, Mr. Duggan. Sir, go ahead.
Yeah, my name is Bob White. I live at 12 Nomkeg Row. I've been a Danvers resident for 43 years. Ashley grew up in that house and lived there, through up to her college years. So I've been very involved with Ashley in this project. I did take it upon myself to talk to Rich Kirby, and he has agreed to not only make the recommendations and suggestions on the type of foliage to put in there, wetlands, but he's also recommended to me the company in Amherst, New Hampshire, Amherst, Massachusetts, excuse me, that specializes in wetlands plants, making arrangements to buy those from him. And then Rich has indicated that he will assist in the location of all the plants. So we're just not going to arbitrarily put the plants wherever we think they might grow. So that's going to be done. And then he went through all the list of items that are here based on the conditions. And that's basically his planting notes that are there. So it should be up to date. He's obviously a very competent individual in his field. So, we'd very much like to move this on. You can have your plan next week, and hopefully at the next meeting we'll be able to close this up. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Okay, just to a quick review, we expect a letter from Mr. Kirby certifying that it's a good proposal.
If we don't, we certainly can, because he said he would. I mean, basically everything that's on that drawing is from him.
Right, and we haven't seen that drawing.
I spoke with Rich today, and we just wanted to make sure the commission was good with the direction this has gone in, and then we'll submit that letter to you with the plan.
Okay, and just the timing of the submission, the day before the day of the meeting is not good. I mean, if we could get it, by the end of next week, so we have time to review it.
Yeah, I think Scott's indicated.
So that's one thing, and the second thing is, we'd like to hear some kind of feedback from Steve King that he's comfortable with the whole stormwater system, well, I don't want to call it a system, the stormwater issues that are in the backyard, because they are discharging into the wetland.
Yeah, I also did call Steve King and had a conversation with him about property and what we needed to do, so.
Okay, good.
Good.
So, yeah, if that's the case, yeah, we want to be done with this too, so.
Thank you.
Okay, so if there's no more public comment, if someone can make a motion to continue the hearing until our next meeting on,
I'll make a motion to
23rd?
continue the hearing for 4 Carroll Way, DEP file number 14-1303 to our next meeting,
I second the motion.
September 23rd.
okay, the motion's been made and seconded, all in favor? Say
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so we will see you again in a few weeks. And item number 9 is a continued public hearing for the applicant, for 100 Water Street, DEP file number 14-1368.
No.
No.
Continued.
Yeah.
I incorrectly put that on the agenda.
Oh, 'cause I
That's
thought,
my fault.
'cause I was just going to continue the hearing. so-
Yeah. We continue that.
Thank you.
Good night, thank you.
Bye now.
So this is not an agenda item.
No.
Nope.
Are they going to be back on the 23rd?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, any other old or new business?
I do just have some brief new business that vary now, just a brief intro, but you guys will get the materials before you for the next meeting. The fishing pier project, if you remember at Endicott Park, the handicap fishing pier platform.
Yep.
Kind of a phase 2 part of the project that was not incorporated under the original filing was a path to get from the handicap parking spot to the handicap fishing platform. That was not incorporated into that. So Steve King is working with his team to amend the order of conditions to ask to now add that handicap accessible pathway. So the handicap can access the fishing platform from the roadway. So those plans I will send over to the board. He was just able to get them finalized, and that would be on for the next
And that would
meeting.
be an amendment to?
Amendment to
an
the
of
order,
conditions.
yeah.
Okay.
That was all.
Is that it, Georgia?
Yes.
Okay, I'd entertain a motion for adjournment.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn our meeting.
Motion's been made. Second?
All in favor?
All in favor?
Amen.
Aye. Okay. Thank you all. Good night.
See what the ZBA says? The ZBA says, "Good night, Danvers." All of them.
Oh, really?
Same time, yeah.
Good night.
That's so funny.
Good to see you, Matt.
Bye, Mike. Be good.
Do the TV guys know we're done?
All done, thank you.
That took a long time.
Yes. The neighbors complaining about stormwater.
I'm not falling for that joke.
I mean,
I almost answered
okay,
you.
you morons, this is Danvers. It was always wetlands. It will